Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another reading of Good Night Lowndes County with Mrs. Gordon. The title of our book today is Little Red Riding Hood. The author is Trina Scott Hyman, and Miss Hyman gave Little Red Riding Hood a little twist. I hope you enjoy reading this story along with Mrs. Gordon. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Elizabeth who lived with her mother in a house on the edge of the village. She was loved by all who knew her, but she was especially dear to her grandmother, who loved her more than anything in the world. One day, the grandmother sewed a red velvet cloak with a hood and gave it to Elizabeth for her birthday. It looked so pretty, and she liked it so much that she would never wear anything else, and therefore everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. Early one morning, her mother said to her, "Come here, Red Riding Hood, and listen to me. I want you to take this loaf of fresh bread, some of this sweet butter, and a bottle of wine to your grandmother. She is sick in bed, and they will do her a world of good. Go right ahead before the sun gets too hot. Promise me that you won't daydream and stray off the path, and don't run, or you will fall down and break the bottle, and then there will be no wine for grandmother. And when you get there, please, please forget your manners. Don't forget your manners. Say good morning, please, and thank you nicely without staring around about you or sucking your fingers. Don't stay too long, or else you will tire grandmother. And when you have a nice visit, come straight home." "Yes, Mamma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I promise I will do just as you tell me." Now, her grandmother lived in a cottage in the middle of the forest, a good half hour's walk from the village. But Little Red Riding Hood knew the way, so she was not afraid to go by herself. When she had walked far enough into the woods to feel just a bit lonely, whom should she meet but a sly and angry old wolf? She had no idea that the wicked animal he was. However, she was not at all frightened of him. "Good morning," Little Red Riding Hood said. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood. Where are you off to so early in the day, my dear?" he asked. "I'm going to grandmother's. She is sick in bed, you know." "Is that so?" he murmured. "And what have you got in that basket?" "A loaf of bread, some sweet butter, and a bottle of wine. Mamma and I baked yesterday, so I'm taking a loaf to grandmother. It would do her a world of good." "Now isn't that nice? And where does your grandmother live, Little Red Riding Hood?" "Oh, it's a good 15 minutes farther into the wood. Her house is one by those big oak trees, right next to the blackberry hedge. And there's a stream running by her garden. Surely you know the place," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Is it good to give strangers your information?" "No, it's not. It's not good at all. And do you think the sly wolf was a stranger?" "Indeed he was." The wolf thought to himself, "Aha! This tender little creature will be a plump morsel, a good dessert after the old woman. I must be clever about this so that I can make a good meal out of the two of them." He walked along with Little Red Riding Hood for a while, making polite conversation. Then he said, "Just look at those beautiful wildflowers, Red Riding Hood. They are a sight even for my tired old eyes. For goodness sake, why don't you relax a bit, look at the world, and see how lovely it is? Why, I don't believe you even hear the birds sing or enjoy the sunshine. You are just as solemn and well behaved as you are going to school. Everything else is gay and happy out here in the forest." What is he trying to do to her? He's a slickster. He's trying to fool her, right? Because that's what strangers what do exactly. And you always say no to a stranger. Then Little Red Riding Hood looked away from the path, and when she saw the sunlight dancing through the trees and the wild flowers and butterflies scattered throughout the ferns, she thought, I'm sure that grandmother would feel happier if I took her a bunch of flowers. They are a sight for tired old eyes, I know. And it is still quite early in the day. I'll have plenty of time to pick them. So she excused herself, said goodbye to the wolf, and wandered off among the trees to pick flowers. Each time she picked one, she always saw another, even prettier than one further away. And so she left the path and went deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wicked wolf went straight off to grandmother's cottage and knocked softly on the door. Was Little Red Riding Hood obedient to what her mother told her to do? No, she wasn't. And when you are disobedient, boys and girls, what happened to you? Do good things happen or bad things happen? Exactly. So you should always do good things. Who's there? Called grandmother from her bed. It's me, Little Red Riding Hood, said the wolf in a tiny voice. I've brought you a loaf of bread, some sweet butter, and a bottle of wine. Let me in. You'll have to lift the latch and let yourself in, dear, the grandmother called out. I'm feeling too weak to get out of bed. So the wolf lifted the latch and opened the door. He ran straight to the bed, and without even saying a good morning, he ate up the poor grandmother in a gulp. Then he put on clean nightgown and shawl. They were lying on the chair by the bedside, got into the bed, and pulled the bed curtains closer together. Sly old wolf. In the meantime, Little Red Riding Hood wandered here and there, picking flowers until she had such an armful she could barely hold them all. Then she suddenly remembered her grandmother and the promise she had made to her mother. So she found her way back to the path and walked straight to the cottage. When she got there, she was amazed to find the door open and she tiptoed in. She felt quite frightened, but she didn't know why. What's wrong? She thought. I always like coming to grandmother so much. Why should I feel so afraid? Can it be because she's sick? Good morning, grandmother, she called, but there was no answer. Then she went quickly into the bedroom and pulled the bed curtains back. There lay her grandmother, but she had drawn her shawl over her face and she looked very odd. Red Riding Hood couldn't help but stare. Grandmother, what big hairy ears you have! Groaned, she said. The better to hear you with, my dear. Oh, grandmother, your eyes are so shiny. The better to see you with, my dear. Your hands look so strange, grandmother. The better to catch you and hug you with, my dear. Please, grandmother, why do you have such big, sharp teeth? Those are to eat you with, my dear. And as the wolf said this, he sprang out of bed and ate up the poor Little Red Riding Hood. Then, having finished his first good meal in many weeks, the wicked wolf went back to bed, pulled the cover up, and soon was snoring as loudly as you can imagine. Oh, poor Little Red Riding Hood. Not long after, the huntsman from the village happened to be passing by grandmother's cottage. By Jiminy, he thought, the old lady is snoring much too loudly. Maybe I should stop in and see if there is anything the matter with her. So she went right into the house and up the bed, where he saw the wolf fast asleep in the grandmother's nightgown and shawl with a fat stomach full to bursting. Right away, the huntsman guessed what had happened. So here you are, you old sinner, the huntsman said. I've been looking for you all these years, and now this is where I found you. He raised his to shoot, but then he wondered if the wicked old wolf might have swallowed the grandmother whole, and if perhaps there was a chance that she still might be saved. So he took out his and quickly devoured the wolf while he lay sleeping. Then he carefully cut open the wolf's belly. At the first cut, he saw the red velvet cloak, and after a few more slashes, a little girl jumped out of the crowd. Oh, thank you. I'm very frightened. It was so dark inside the wolf. Next, the grandmother climbed out alive, but hardly able to breathe from fright and exhaustion. They thanked the huntsman with all their hearts, and he was so glad to see them both alive and well that he hugged the Red Riding Hood and shook the grandmother's hand over and over again. They were all quite happy. The huntsman skinned the wolf and took the pelt home to nail on his door. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother sat down together to eat the fresh bread and sweet butter. The grandmother drank some wine, and Red Riding Hood had a cup of blackberry tea. And after a while, the grandmother felt quite strong and healthy and began to clean up the mess that the wolf had left in charge. As Little Red Riding Hood walked home through the woods, she thought to herself, I will never wander off the forest path again. As long as I live, I should have kept my promise to my mother. She was comforted, though, that she had at least minded her manners and had always said, Good morning, please, and thank you. The end. Boys and girls, this is a lesson to be learned. Never ever be disobedient of your parents or the adults who are supervision has supervision over you, and never ever 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 never never ever talk to strangers. The end. And by the way, don't forget to take the AR test, boys and girls. Hope you enjoyed this reading along with Miss Gordon. Until next time, bye bye.